December 7th, 1941, a date etched in the annals of history, a day that would forever alter the course of the 20th century. On this fateful Sunday morning, as the sun cast its golden rays over the tranquil waters of Pearl Harbor, a surprise attack would shatter the peace and plunge the United States into the fires of World War II. The events of that day, forever seared into the collective memory of a nation, serve as a stark reminder of the devastating consequences of unprovoked aggression and the indomitable spirit of the American people. Join us as we delve into the history of the Pearl Harbor attack, exploring the intricate web of events that led to this pivotal moment in time. Welcome, viewers, to Enchanting Lore. What's something people don't know about the rising tensions between the United States and Japan before World War II? The seeds of conflict between the United States and Japan were sown long before the bombs fell on Pearl Harbor. The late 19th century witnessed the rise of both nations as major powers on the global stage, their ambitions and interests increasingly intertwined in the vast expanse of the Pacific Ocean. For Japan, the arrival of Commodore Matthew Perry and his black ships in 1853 marked a turning point in its history. Forced to open its doors to the outside world after centuries of self-imposed isolation, Japan embarked on a path of rapid modernization and militarization, determined to secure its place among the world's great powers. The United States, meanwhile, emerged from the 19th century as a rising industrial giant, its economic and military might steadily expanding across the Pacific. The annexation of Hawaii in 1898 and the acquisition of the Philippines following the Spanish-American War signaled America's growing presence in the region, setting the stage for future clashes with Japan. Fueled by a potent mix of nationalism, militarism, and economic ambition, Japan entered the 20th century with a growing sense of destiny. Victories in the Sino-Japanese War from 1894 to 1895 and the Russo-Japanese War from 1904 to 1905 cemented Japan's status as a major military power, shattering the myth of Western invincibility and fueling its imperial ambitions. Japan's growing appetite for empire, however, brought it into increasing conflict with the United States and other Western powers with interests in Asia. Japan's annexation of Korea in 1910 and its brutal invasion of Manchuria in 1931 were met with international condemnation, further straining relations with the West. Despite these tensions, Japan joined the Allied side during World War I, seizing the opportunity to expand its influence in China and the Pacific. However, the Treaty of Versailles, which ended the war, failed to satisfy Japan's territorial ambitions, sowing the seeds of resentment and laying the groundwork for future conflict. The interwar years witnessed a complex interplay of cooperation and competition between the United States and Japan. Both nations sought to expand their economic and strategic influence in the Pacific, leading to inevitable friction and mistrust. The Lansing-Ishii Agreement of 1917 sought to ease tensions by recognizing Japan's special interests in China while affirming the open-door policy. However, diplomatic relations continued to deteriorate, setting the stage for the conflict that would erupt at Pearl Harbor. The Great Depression of the 1930s exacerbated the economic competition between the United States and Japan. As the global economy spiraled downward, both nations sought to protect their own interests, often at the expense of the other. Trade disputes and protectionist policies further strained relations, creating an atmosphere of suspicion and hostility. The road to war, Japan's expansionist policy. The 1930s witnessed the rise of aggressive militarism in Japan as a cabal of ultra-nationalist officers seized control of the government and embarked on a reckless path of expansionism. Driven by a belief in Japanese racial superiority and a desire for autarky, Japan sought to establish a greater East Asia co-prosperity sphere under its dominion. Japan's invasion of Manchuria in 1931 marked a turning point, signaling its willingness to use military force to achieve its goals. The League of Nations' condemnation of the invasion only served to further isolate Japan and strengthen its resolve. In 1937, Japan launched a full-scale invasion of China, plunging the region into a brutal war that would rage for 8 long years. The Nanjing Massacre, a horrific episode of mass murder and rape committed by Japanese troops, shocked the world and solidified Japan's image as an aggressor nation. A day of infamy, the attack on Pearl Harbor. As Japan's war in China raged on, tensions with the United States continued to escalate. The United States, alarmed by Japan's aggression and its alliance with Nazi Germany and Fascist Italy, imposed economic sanctions and began providing material aid to China. Faced with mounting economic pressure and determined to break American resolve, Japan's military leaders began planning a surprise attack on the U.S. Pacific Fleet at Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. The goal was to cripple the American fleet, giving Japan free rein to consolidate its conquests in Southeast Asia and the Pacific. On the morning of December 7, 1941, Japanese carrier-based aircraft launched from a task force steaming silently toward Hawaii, descended upon the unsuspecting American base at Pearl Harbor. The attack, which caught the United States completely off guard, lasted for 2 devastating hours. The day after declarations of war and global outrage, news of the attack on Pearl Harbor sent shockwaves across the United States and around the world. The images of burning battleships and shattered aircraft flashed across newspapers and newsreels, galvanized American public opinion against Japan. On December 8, 1941, President Franklin D. Roosevelt addressed a joint session of Congress, his voice trembling with anger and resolve as he declared war on Japan. Yesterday, December 7, 1941, a date which will live in infamy, the United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan, Roosevelt declared. British Prime Minister Winston Churchill and Australian Prime Minister John Curtin, along with other Allied leaders, quickly followed suit, declaring war on Japan and joining the United States in its fight against Axis aggression. The attack on Pearl Harbor had transformed a regional conflict in Asia into a global war, pitting the Allied powers against the formidable forces of the Axis. The price of war: casualties and consequences. The attack on Pearl Harbor resulted in a staggering loss of life and military hardware. Over 2,400 Americans were killed. The U.S. Pacific Fleet was devastated. The attack had a profound impact on World War II. It galvanized American public opinion against Japan. The attack forced the United States to abandon isolationism. America enters the fray: mobilization and retaliation. The attack on Pearl Harbor unleashed a wave of patriotism and determination across the United States. Millions of Americans answered the call to arms, enlisting in the military and volunteering on the home front. Factories were retooled to produce tanks, planes, and ships. Under President Roosevelt, the U.S. fought Japan and Germany. The U.S. Navy began a campaign to roll back Japanese conquests. The Battle of Midway marked a turning point, crippling the Japanese fleet. The tide turns from Pearl Harbor to victory. The road to victory in the Pacific was long and bloody. Island-hopping campaigns marked by fierce fighting and heavy casualties gradually pushed back the Japanese. The battles of Guadalcanal, Iwo Jima, and Okinawa were among the most brutal battles in human history, testing the courage and resilience of American fighting men to the limit. In Europe, the United States and its allies liberated France and Italy from Nazi control, culminating in the D-Day invasion of Normandy in June 1944. The Allied victory in Europe in May 1945 freed up resources for the final push against Japan. Faced with imminent defeat, Japan's leaders refused to surrender. The atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in August 1945, while controversial, forced Japan's unconditional surrender and brought an end to World War II. The legacy of Pearl Harbor: lessons learned and remembered. The attack on Pearl Harbor left an enduring legacy on the United States and the world. It taught the importance of vigilance, preparedness, and the need for a strong national defense. The attack also underscored the dangers of isolationism and the interconnectedness of the world in the 20th century. The Pearl Harbor attack also serves as a stark reminder of the human cost of war. The thousands of American servicemen who lost their lives that day and the countless others who fought and died in the Pacific and European theaters are a testament to the sacrifices made in the name of freedom and democracy. In the aftermath of World War II, the United States emerged as a global superpower, playing a leading role in shaping the post-war world order. The lessons learned from Pearl Harbor, both strategic and moral, continue to inform American foreign policy and military thinking to this day. Lest we forget, honoring the past, shaping the future. The 7th of December is a day of remembrance, a time to honor the memory of those who lost their lives at Pearl Harbor. It is also a time to reaffirm our commitment to the values of peace, freedom, and justice. As we look to the future, let us draw inspiration from the courage and resilience of those who endured the horrors of war. May we never forget the sacrifices made at Pearl Harbor. If you found this video insightful, please like, share, subscribe, and comment below. Your support helps us create more content like this.